Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com, for more info. Email me through benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcasts. People of Distinction is internationally syndicated solely due to the love and support that you all continue to give. We're available across all major distributors, and as long as you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. Now sit back and strap in, because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Christine Hamer-Hodges. And we're going to be discussing Christine's inspirational book, How High the Larks Fly. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a whole host of other places. But if you want to gather everything that she has in store, check out her personal site, and that's hamer-hodges.biz. There, you're going to gather more information on her, more information on this amazing book. But get this, she has another book in store that you're also going to want to check out. Now, that one is called The Opening Act, the love story of Augie and Margot Rodriguez, both of which are incredibly compelling in books you're definitely going to want to add to your shelf. Once again, that's hamer-hodges.biz. And I quickly want to take this opportunity and point out the fact that Christine was brought to us by one of the best publishing firms in the business, people you already know, of course. I'm talking about Studio of Books. So for my writers out there who have written their masterpiece and now you're looking for a mover to help you get that off the shelf, head on over to studioofbooks.com, because they're the ones that are going to help you do just that. I'm telling you, this is what they specialize in, and you're going to want to head on over and gather all of the information on how they're going to help take your creative endeavors to the next level. Once again, that's studioofbooks.com. And people, listen, it is such a pleasure, such a delight to have Christine here on the line. Her book, How High the Larks Fly, man, trust me when I tell you, this is a book that you're going to want to add to your shelf. It is going to be truly inspirational. It is a testament of the human spirit. You see, because at just 13 years old, Ruth Lindenau, her life was torn apart when she was taken by the Third Reich, thrust into a nightmare that would test the limits of human resilience. This extraordinary journey from the depths of despair to a life rebuilt with unyielding courage, as I mentioned, is a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable evil. People, we have all heard about the world wars, right? We read about it in history books. We see the movies that have been developed. Not very many of us know someone that has lived through it, or even potentially some of us listening in right now that have lived through it and had firsthand experience of this unimaginable terror. Hearing this story today, and trust me, we're only going to hear a very small percentage of it, but hearing this story today is going to give you a different insight on things. Prepare to be moved. Prepare to be inspired. Prepare to be forever changed by a tale that reminds us why we must never forget the past. You know, it's like that old adage, those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. Well, it's messages like this, it's books like this that are helping us keep that within the forefront of our mind, to always remember those that have lived before us, those stories of resilience, but also to make sure that we're keeping our mind's eye on the future and understanding some of the pitfalls to avoid so that we don't happen to ever go back there. Christine has done something amazing with this book, and this is one you're going to want to be a part of. Christine, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest with us. How are you doing today?
Oh, thank you, Benji. It's a pleasure, and I'm so excited to tell you about this incredible story.
Well, listen, you're excited to tell us about it. We are excited to hear about it. Okay, this is something remarkable that is taken directly out of a history book in a firsthand experience like never before. So, Christine, we're honored to have you here and looking forward to this discussion. Before we go into the book, I know you have a review you would like to share with us that was written about your book. Let's start off by learning and hearing more about it.
Yes, this is my favorite review, and I have, without boasting, I have had a lot of very good reviews. But this was given before publication by a friend of mine called Vadim Prokhorov. He is a Russian concert pianist, author, artist, and composer. Very, very talented man. Mm-hmm. And he set me off, really. He inspired me above anyone else to write my own experiences and those of people who actually exist today. Empathy is perhaps the most important law of existence for mankind. With empathy and insight, Christine Hamer-Hodges explores in her new book, How High the Larks Fly, the crisis of the soul of an entire generation of German youth during the Third Reich. She does that through the eyes of Ruth Lindenau, a bright village girl who was taken from her home and sent to a school for gifted children who were classified as pure Aryans according to the standards of Nazi ideology. It was at those schools that the Nazi leadership hoped to engineer a new, superior race. This is the true story of Ruth's miraculous escape, a remarkable series of events, both terrifying and liberating, conveyed in cinematically dramatic terms. This book is about love, found in a place where hope seems to cease to exist, and a loss when love seems possible. A captivating and inspiring story. And that's it.
Love that.
Isn't it a fabulous review?
It is a wonderful review. And honestly, from the research that we have done, truer words could not have been spoken. This is a remarkable tale and something that really needs to be on everyone's shelf. Thank you for sharing it. I would be remiss if we didn't start at the foundation. So first and foremost, tell us more about this book and the journey that Ruth took part in.
Well, I was introduced to Ruth after I had written my first book, The Opening Act. Mm-hmm. And a friend had knew that I wrote, and she was friendly with Ruth. And she said, you need to meet this incredible woman. She's a German. Actually, she was born in West Prussia, which is now Poland, mm-hmm. but she's lived in America now for many years, and she has never told anyone her life story, and that included her own daughter. And since I wrote the book, I've become friends with her daughter. I went with my husband to Poland because West Prussia became Poland after the war, and I did all the research that everything Ruth told me about her life. We went to the little village called Tiegenort, where she grew up, and I took photographs of all her memories, the water lilies floating on the river, the beautiful little school she went to, the church where she sang in the choir. And when I came home, I gave Ruth those photographs. She had never been back to her old home. And she cried when she looked at them, and she said, that's exactly how it was. And when, unfortunately, she passed away 2 years ago, and her daughter Barbara, who is now a very good friend of mine, told me that when her mother passed away, she discovered that all those photographs of Ruth's home were under her pillow. She slept with them every night.
Wow. You know, Christine, my follow-up question, and first and foremost, I want to preface by saying I'm so glad you wrote the book and now published it for the public to partake in. But I'm curious to know the inspiration behind it, right? Because, of course, this could have been a story verbally told to those around you. And I guess it's safe to assume why you would have done that. But I'm not going to take the words out of your mouth. Talk to us about the importance of bringing Ruth's story to life.
I think the thing that struck me most after she had told me her story, and it is absolutely true, no one else knew. Mm-hmm. She took me to her home. I sat at her feet, and she talked for 3 or 4 hours. And you do need a good memory when you write, because I took a lot of notes, but I had to remember a lot of things as well. And the most important thing that came to my mind before putting pen to paper was that the courage, the absolute bravery she showed using her God-given talents. She had a beautiful singing voice, and she could play the piano. She loved to play the piano. And those were the accomplishments that actually got her taken out of her school, because although she was very good at studies as well, those talents that she had in school meant that she actually led the school choir. So she was picked out by members of the Third Reich, along with another young woman who was a friend of hers in the school. What these people did, they took the two most talented children from all the schools in the area and told the parents they were being given a superior education just to illustrate the brilliance of German youth. In fact, it was a prison camp. These were prison camps. The Germans took over beautiful old buildings all over that area in West Prussia. They took schools and hospitals and all kinds of places, and that's where they shipped these children. And they had all the boys in one school and all the girls were in another school. Ruth had 67 children, girls in her school. And it was very cruel. They were treated very, very badly. Yeah. There was, how can I say, starved of food, starved of affection, starved of all family contact, and severely punished if they even asked a question like, will I see my parents this year? Or may I write a letter to my parents? No, they were not allowed to do anything. And so they were completely isolated. So Ruth decided she was going to figure out a way to somehow get out of that place. And she did. The story is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
I can go on. I don't even have to be asked questions because I talk about this all the time.
No, not a problem. Christine, I'm going to jump in quickly. And I agree. This is phenomenal, what you're discussing. And as you're giving some of the specifics of what the situation was like that she was found in, that she had to deal with, it is heartbreaking. But it also talks to, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show in my intro, the resilience of the human spirit and how strong we are even without knowing it, right? I think I oftentimes say we don't realize how strong we are until we are placed in a position where we have no other recourse but to fall back on our strengths, right? And to really, I guess, for lack of another term, pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, to use a proverbial term here. But my follow-up that I want to go into here, Christine, is when we talk about resiliency of the human spirit, we're talking specifically with regards to Ruth, a very particular circumstance. But this can go, and it really can be almost a copy and paste in different scenarios where anyone that is battling their own obstacles, whether, they're overcoming a health illness or some type of disastrous situation, we utilize and we find strength in moments, whether it's memories, whether it's wanting to get back to a certain family member or a loved one, whatever the case is, we find those strengths somewhere within us. So my follow-up question now, I'm curious to know, when you were talking with Ruth, what were the key things, the key aspects for her that helped her endure the horrors that she faced and helped her persevere through it all?
Well, the most important thing, which occurred in the first school or camp, was her talent. She was 13 years old. She was a tall, beautiful young woman, green eyes, red hair, stunning features, and she looked older than her years. So automatically, she almost became a target by the very austere German women who ran this particular place. I go into enormous detail about everything. I like to have lots of information. If I'm reading a book, I want to know about everything, and I try to do that when I'm writing my own stories. Everything has to be told. So the book is very, very detailed about how people felt, what made them tick, how Ruth eventually managed to figure out how she was going to get out of that school just for a few days. And it was through her music. That was the thing that she had. She only had that. So she was after she'd been there for 2 years, I believe, a professor came to visit the school. He was looking for talented musicians who would come and entertain the German troops. And he was going around the schools looking for talented pianists and singers, etc. And Ruth was selected as one of the people who would go. And that was the first chink of light in her dark experience.
You know, Christine, this is gripping. You can't see me right now, but I'm at the edge of my seat. All right. I am hanging on to every single word. People, I'm telling you, I know you are all convinced already. You understand this is a book that needs to be added to your shelf. Once again, it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, it's hamer-hodges.biz. You need to head on over there, pick up copies of How High the Larks Fly. While you're at it, remember, we're not going to get a chance to discuss it today, but an honorable mention, because it is definitely gripping as well, the opening act. You're going to want to check both of these amazing books out. You know, as we transition and we start to tie out here, Christine, I can sit here, I could talk to you for hours. There is enough information to cover it all, I promise you. I know Ruth's story doesn't end at this one camp. She unfortunately goes into 2 other camps in this journey. But let's fast forward a bit, because while she is transitioning from the second camp to the third, not only is there just a resounding strength that we continue to see within her, but there's also a forbidden and even budding love story that happens to come about. Talk to us a little bit more about this relationship that starts to develop.
Well, I'd be delighted to do that. I just would like to tie up the kind of loose ends of her first place. She managed to escape that place along with one of her friends. And that story in and of itself is amazing, because it was during the time that the Germans were beginning to lose the war. So she escaped. That, as I said, how she did it was amazing. But and she finds her way back to her little village of Tiegenort. And literally 1 week after she got home, the Germans, the Red Army, the Red Army started attacking West Prussia. And so the whole village, the entire village, had to escape. The Germans were at the tail end of the war. They had a few rusty boats literally left. And the villagers had to escape over a frozen ocean to get to the ships, because they couldn't anchor close to shore. So a lot of people were maimed and broke limbs, etc., just getting to those boats. They got on the boat, and the next boat that came in had 3 of Ruth's aunts on it, and it was bombed by the Russians. No one survived. Ruth's boat managed to get to Denmark, and during that trip, where she said they were packed like sardines in a can in the bottom of the ship, during that time the Germans capitulated the war. So instead of being escaping prisoners, they were now prisoners again. They were now going to Denmark to become prisoners again, and they went to a school. They were actually taken to a school in Denmark, which was taken over by the Danish in order to house all of these German prisoners that were coming in. And that's where another amazing story begins in that particular school. Everything changed. The whole family now, her mother, father, and sister were with her, and they were prisoners in Denmark. So while Ruth was at the second, we'll call it the school this time, though it was a prison camp, there were bars on all the windows, and but the war was now over, so life was a little bit different. The Americans were amazing. They sent things like fabrics, drawing, pencils and paints and things to get the prisoners sort of working again, knitting and painting and drawing and doing woodwork and so on. And Ruth, because of her incredible talent on the piano, she would practice on a beautiful piano that was in fact left at the school in the grand hall. And one day she looked up and she saw the commandant of the camp, absolutely mesmerized, looking at her across this huge hall. And she could tell from his expression, and she was now more than adolescent. She knew what it looked like when a man was interested in her. And she could see that he was absolutely fascinated by her. And that was the beginning of an incredible story that continues, because after, I believe she was in that school with her family for over a year, but the Red Cross did an enormously good job finding relatives of people. And I write quite a bit in the book about her fantastic grandmother, who is a real character, and I draw her character out a lot in the book. And they missed her so much, but the Red Cross found her. And so her whole family was sent to a huge camp, which had specially been built for these German prisoners of war, with around 2,500 people imprisoned there. And so she and her family were taken once again across Denmark, and one day she was given a lot of menial jobs. They all had to wear striped jackets so that they were recognizable if anyone tried to escape. And she was given a job sweeping the road, because it was like a huge village, this place. And a car drove slowly by one day, and she looked, and it stopped. And her heart started beating because she thought, oh my God, I must be doing something wrong. And the window wound down very slowly, and the passenger of the vehicle looked out and stared at her. And it was the commandant from the last camp. He'd got himself moved to this camp. And Ruth was absolutely shocked and horrified. And the commandant just raised his cap, and the car drove off. And then he became the commandant of that camp. And she got herself, through all kinds of strange ways, a job working in his office, because she now had learned how to speak Danish.
Oh, man. You know, Christine.
You've got to read this book. I'm telling
absolutely.
you, and then I want you to call me.
Yeah. We're gonna have to have a follow-up discussion, okay?
I had an email from a high court judge in Fort Lauderdale here in Florida, and he said, I don't usually read this genre of book, but this has to be a motion picture. He said it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. You know, it is, because a depiction of a time in history from a different perspective that we generally don't get to see. A lot of times when we're talking, and listen, this is not to compare one to the other or to try to put one down and make one more important or severe. Like, that's not what I'm talking about here. People, oftentimes when we hear about Nazi Germany, we hear it from a very particular perspective, and rightfully so. But I love the fact that we are learning about things from this standpoint, from this viewpoint.
The thing is, all human beings suffer from their various governments. That's how I look at it.
Absolutely.
They do. I mean, anyway, we won't get into that.
Oh, I know. That's a rabbit hole we can dive down, and I'd be happy to do so with you, Christine, because I think it's worth noting, and I think that there is a lot of acknowledgement that needs to be brought to that. But for the sake of this one, people, you know where you got to go. I'm going to say it for you again, but I know you all are already heading there. You understand the importance of this book and why you need to add it to your shelf. So I'm going to say it just for redundancy. For those of you in the back, that may be a little hard of hearing. All right, once again, it's Amazon. It's Barnes & Noble. It's hamer-hodges.biz. You got to pick up copies of this amazing book. It's called How High the Larks Fly. Man, this is a remarkable tale, again, of resiliency, but also of finding love in moments of such tragedy and despair. And I think that in and of itself is a beautiful notion to explore. People, when you head on over there, you pick up copies of this amazing book and you start to embark upon the journey, you are going to understand that this is so much larger than a story of survival. It truly is. It's a call to honor the voices history tried to silence. This book is going to help open your eyes to a part of history, but also, again, knock on wood, because I'm an optimist. So I believe in humanity, and I believe in our future. But I do see that we're in a turbulent time right now. We're in an uncertain time. And I think that a lot of, when you watch the news, and I don't care whether you're on the left, you're on the right, it doesn't really matter. I look at all of them, regardless of where you stand politically. A lot of they're propaganda media machines, right? So they're going to spew things. They're going to make things much more severe and dramatic at times. But I do think it's important to understand and pay attention to where we currently are and where it appears we are heading, because I do think that there are some correlations that can be found. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to go further down that rabbit hole. But people, this is a remarkable true story that needs to be added to your shelf. And it's going to help put things in perspective for you if you allow it to. But it starts first and foremost by picking it up and being a part of it. Hop on board, go along for the ride, and I promise you it is a roller coaster like one you've never been on before. While you're at it, check out her other book, The Opening Act. These are amazing and books that you truly want to add to your shelf. And you know who you got to thank for it, man. Christine Hamer-Hodges is a name to be reckoned with and is a name to be remembered. You know where to go. Christine, this has been an absolutely riveting conversation. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you so much, Benji. I really enjoyed it.